GDV for real sound review. I hope you're alright despite of this COVID crisis. And today I want to think about the evolution of sound mastering and the role of AI. When we think about machines taking over the jobs of humans, we think about constructing cars, maybe cutting the grass, manual jobs where a machine can replace a difficult work. But we saw more and more than in terms of translation, for example, new apps start to seriously challenge human. We saw that for real-time game strategy, best players in the world had to face incredible AI. AI which has been playing virtually for 200 years, 24 hours a day. What is true for these specific domains can be also true for sound mastering. Hence, the title of this video is Mastering Going to Disappear. This is indeed provocative. This is about challenging some of the so-called established ground of the sound design world, sound creation, the sound industry. I don't say that my friends who are sound engineers are incompetent, but I also think that there is a form of denial about the danger, or let's say the reality of what is coming next. Nobody wants to hear that it could lose its job or redefine completely what it's doing, but we should really care about what is going forward. I will come in a minute for those who don't know what is mastering or what I intend to define in the reflection. It could be a good reminder for some of you, but we saw that the domain evolved and there is now this thing called deep learning, and for Go game or chess, a computer can beat a human. And maybe this is when we think about AI, it's not only in terms of beating the human, but maybe in terms of collaboration, in terms of putting this final touch at the end of sound creation. When you are a mixing sound producer, where now this part of the game is very specialized for sound engineers that like to take the stereo track and do something else, making the last settings to ensure that this is a correct product for the sound platforms, whether it is CD, vinyl, or streaming platforms. But what could be exactly an AI process that would be for mastering? These things already exist, and I will come at the end of this video, or in at least later, about these specific products and how every streaming platforms try to implement their own app solution already. We see that. But what could be AI mastering? An AI would act on dynamic, EQ, harmonics or overtones, maybe some effects like the reverberation, but it's more rare, in order to shift the sound to correspond to some standards especially. One thing I never really enjoy about mastering, and I think some of the sound engineers specialized in this field don't really admit that, there is some form of norm and something that depends on the last format that you will play, also something that tries to reflect about the sound capabilities of a monitoring system, an hi-fi or headphones that people are using. So there is this norm inside the process that we have to think about. But an AI would try to find some sort of standard. This is what humans do also, in part of it. And for this, the material for the data analysis is already there. This is what there is on all the streaming platform. And I don't pretend that there would be only one way of mastering for an AI. It could be for each genre, for each kind of music, you could find some kind of average mastering, some kind of middle process that could fit to what you want. It would make an analysis of sound and dynamic of all this gigantic library. This is what Google did once they opened Google Photos. Hence, they could improve computational photography. But there could be another way to process for an AI. Imagine that an AI learn from real sound engineers in mastering. Imagine that this AI, as for data, all the sessions where a sound engineer use this plugin, and has the original material coming out from a mix session and then the final result, and have access to all the process. You can say, well, if there is hardware, how is it going to simulate this? This is simple. You can now make a settings inside the hardware with a USB that send the settings this kind of things exist, or simply by noting this, there is no problem in gathering this kind of data. And I think that more and more some hardware plugins could be replaced by simulations. More and more the CPU that we are seeing, like the last generation of Mac Silicon, could be this kind of processor that we need to completely simulate the whole hardware inside the studio. And if an AI had access to all this data that train mastering and make some mistakes and is corrected by a set of users that give feedback, we have really the possibility of completely making automatic this kind of process. And should we be happy about this, or should we be frightened? I think this solution is in between, and it depends on the kind of ethics choice that we made inside the music industry. And the past 20 years don't let us be completely optimistic about this, because the streaming has been for the worse regarding the artist revenue. But that's another topic. Let me know in the comments down below if you want me to do something about the issues linked to the evolution to streaming process. I would say that an AI could be a really great assistant. Main problem, if we do that, we lose the technique, we lose what we learn inside the process. We learn this part where you have to dirty your hands, but that sometimes has been necessary, not for the experienced sound engineers, but for the beginners. Sometimes you have to go through the process to really get a knowledge that is essential and that will become eventually something unconscious, or let's say a kind of second nature that you have inside of you, and that becomes for itself automatized. But also, my biggest fear about an AI using all this data to make the process automatic is what is left for creativity inside the process. Some of my friends who are sound engineers will say that there is a very important part of creative process inside mastering. This is true, but there is also a part of norm, as I was presently saying. And I think that AI could completely narrow our perception of what sound can be. What I think is some AI could fulfill the requirements for the streaming platform and unify the formats. They could help do that. And the loudness war has ended, as we mentioned with Valger Sigurdssons inside this interview. This is a good thing, because of a playlist we now have standards that serve the sound of music. But also, I think that a certain category of sound engineers is in danger. I mean that you will find on the internet, Instagram, Facebook, whatsoever, some sound engineers that tries to do 10 hours a day mastering, and they do it every time the same way for cheap budget. Sometimes the first track is free. I'm not sure this is exactly the kind of mastering that I want. If I do rock, I don't want to be masterized the way electro is masterized. The role reversal is also true. This is true, for example, if my music is reggae, it doesn't sound like classical music. So, these sound engineers, in my opinion, make the same mastering for every kind of music, and this is horrible. This is why, for example, I do not like Bluetooth speakers, because the bass sound always the same way, whatever you listen to. And this is already a horrible thing. I think that there will be several possibilities. The first one is, I think that the best sound engineers, with their level of skills they have, won't disappear. It means that the most expensive studios with the greatest experience will remain. Then there will be a case where these cheap normative sound engineers, they will disappear. But it remains something at the middle where, for some productions, depending where you release your sound, you will use some plugins that will use this AI process, and you will put this directly on the mix bus after your mix. And maybe you will have some collaboration with sound engineers specialized in each streaming platform. These are assumptions, these are hypotheses, but my concern is maybe there is an average zone of some honest sound engineers who try to do their best, and the market for them is going maybe to disappear. So it raises the question on what do we want as actors of the music industry? What do we aim for? And is it something healthy? I would really be happy to have your comments on that topic. If you like this video, please push the like button. Consider subscribing if you didn't already. And I will be very happy to see you on this channel very soon.